Hello. Today I'm going to walk through how I engrave glass on both my WeCreat 20-watt and my xTool F1 Ultra. On the various Facebook groups, I often see a lot of people asking how to do it, what to use, and of course what settings. So I'm going to do my best to give a few examples of what I found works for me consistently. I use black praying Tempera paint, and usually now I use a paint sprayer. You don't have that, so I'm also going to do it with a plain foam brush. I've tried chalk paint in the spray can before. It works great for engraving. I just find it much harder to clean off after you're done engraving. With the Tempera paint, you run under the tap and it just comes right off. With the brush, I try and keep the paint as even and thin of a coat as possible. It's a bit harder to get even with a brush compared to a sprayer, but if you take your time, you can get it close enough. With the sprayer, I typically water down the paint a bit and do 2 coats. One spraying top to bottom and then one side to side to make it as consistent as possible. Another good thing about the Tempera paint is it's easy to clean any overspray. With the brush, I also try to go top to bottom and side to side, make sure it's as evenly covered as possible, but I don't water the paint down at all. I find the foam brush works better for me. The bristle brushes I was using would leave bristles behind, but that could just be because they were very low quality brushes. I always clean the glass with isopropyl alcohol. Just make sure the paint sticks as good as possible. I don't take it. It doesn't need a ton of time to. You don't have to scrub it. You don't have to do much. These are just mason jars. Nothing special about these. Put some paint on the brush. And then just try and coat it as evenly as possible. Get a bit more paint. I'm going to do these mason jars because they're square, so even if you don't have the rotary, you can still do something like this. You don't want it too thick, it'll dry unevenly, and depending on the settings you use, it may not even burn through the paint, and you'll just end up with spots that aren't engraved in the glass. So just take your time, get it as even as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can see, there's spots through the glass through the paint. You can see the glass. It's not perfectly black. It'll be fine. And that's it. We wait for that to dry. So here's the one that I painted earlier, and then here's one that I sprayed off camera. The one that I sprayed is a lot more even, and it dries a lot faster. You just have to do 2 coats to make sure it's completely covered. The one that's brushed, there you can see a bit of the glass in behind. It doesn't fully cover it. It'll be fine anyway. Definitely, if you can, the sprayer is the way to go. It's much easier. It takes longer to clean the sprayer than it does to spray the glass. Once the paint is dry, you can get it in your laser. You can put it right on the bed. This is about the maximum size I can do in my 20-watt. If you have something larger, just take the bed out. You could put it right down on the tray underneath. For autofocusing, I've had it hit the glass before because it doesn't see the black on black. In that case, just put a piece of white paper over top, have it autofocus on the paper, and then take it away before you engrave. One thing you're going to want to make sure you do, that I did not do when I was setting up this test, you can see I started a little bit, is make sure that the glass can't rock. Because of the air assist, it'll actually make it wobble back and forth. The more round something is, of course, the more it'll wobble. If it's perfectly flat, it's not going to go anywhere. So just make sure whatever you're engraving isn't going to move. I don't have anything fancy. I just have a bunch of pins that I jammed in the honeycomb, and it just stops it from wobbling anywhere with the air assist. On my WeCreat 20-watt, I'm going to use 65 power, 80 speed, and 300 line density. I find on these mason jars it comes out nice and crisp, nice and frosted, without any chipping. I don't like the chipped out look. I don't like shards of glass being everywhere, especially if you can't get it all out. So that's what I use for a nice frosted look. Now on the xTool F1 Ultra, I'm going to use 80 power, 300 speed, and 300 line density. This is the brushed one. I'm going to also engrave that just so we can keep track of it. Once I wash all the paint off, we can see the difference between the brushed paint and the sprayed paint. And now, after a quick wash under the sink, just water, and I rub it lightly, and all the paint comes off, and you can see that both are done. There's not a big difference between whether it was brushed or painted or sprayed. I made a mistake down here, and I still had the word brushed, so I just blanked that out. But they're pretty close as far as how frosted they look. Like I said, there's no exact settings for every piece of glass. You're gonna have to mess around with it a little bit. I've had glass that shatters because it was so thin, and I tried to use the same settings as other stuff. It's a lot of trial and error, but this is a good basis of how to get going. If there's anything else you'd like to have me try out and demonstrate a rough how-to of how to make something, let me know. Other than that, thanks for watching.